Welcome back to another Crafty Thursday here with Frankie D. Crafter. Today, we'll be working on some scattered terrain. And later in the video, we'll be announcing the winner to the contest. Today I'll be crafting giant mushrooms, or miniature giant mushrooms. So I guess regular size mushrooms? Mushrooms for your tabletop RPG game. Nailed it. We're gonna start with the cap of the mushroom. You want to get your hands on some model magic from Crayola. Not only is it cheap, but it is also super light and it's easy to work with. Start by rolling a small ball and then using your fingers to make an indentation on one side. Roll up another ball, flatten it out to fit into the other indentation. When uniting them, be sure not to apply too much pressure. Magic Model does a great job at sticking to itself. Once you have them together, start carving on the flatter side of the mushroom cap. You almost want to make it look like pizza slices. Make sure to keep the mushroom round and allow the model magic to dry for about 2 to 3 days. I know, it sounds like a long time, but remember you can work on more than one at a time, and while your mushroom caps dry, you can work on the rest of the material for the build. Starting with the stem, that we'll be making from skewer sticks and insulation foam. The skewer is for extra strength. I have done these before without the skewer, and they're just too fragile. I cut my foam 3 centimeters by 3 centimeters and then about 7 centimeters high. Then I get my skewer through it and start rounding off the edges. To get an organic look, I heat up the foam with a lighter. Only heat seconds at a time and make sure to do it in a very well ventilated area. Since the mushrooms are giant, we're gonna be adding smaller fungi on the sides of the stem. You can make this fungi from air dry clay. Make very small misshapen discs and allow them to dry for a bit. I then cut them in half right before they fully dry. I will also add smaller sized mushroom to the base. For these, we'll need paper fasteners. I like to place them on the pink insulation foam and work on all of them at once, instead of working on them one by one after attaching them to the base. I then get them all primed up and start painting on them. I paint some red and some orange. I also paint some yellow, but I didn't end up liking the way they came out at the end, so I changed it to a darkish magenta color. After I apply the first coat, I go back and add another coat. But this time, while the paint is still wet, I add a little bit of white to the top of the mushroom and blend it with the red and the orange. This will be the last step before we start putting things together, I promise. I like to base a lot of my terrain with a homemade recipe. I use caulk that I get from Home Depot for about $1, and then I add sand from the dollar store also for about $1, and I also add a bit of water and then start mixing. I check until it's the right consistency and then I move on. I cut random shapes from a foam board as my base, then I start adding the basing texture thingy to them. You should be ready to work and glue things on this in about an hour or so. Just make sure it's completely dry before you do work on it. Okay, let's start putting everything together now. Since we're working with pink foam, we can't add hot glue to it directly. I pour the hot glue onto a small piece of cardboard and then from there, use another piece of cardboard to put it onto the pink foam. I found that it doesn't melt your foam this way. I then reworked the shape a little bit to make it look more realistic. I then primed it all up and started painting. For this specific mushroom I went red, but you could really go whatever color you wanted. I mean, the funkier they get, the cooler they end up looking. I went with yellow dots, but shaped them more like a triangle. I made sure to include different size triangles and also added a few small circle dots. I was low on yellow paint at this point, so that's why the triangles look the way they do. I'm eventually gonna fix this, but even on the pictures I took for the video, you'll be able to tell. I make sure to add a little bit of white to the bottom so that when I actually put the color I want, it comes through well. I'm adding a medium brown to the stem that after it dries will come out pretty dark because of the base coat. For the bottom of the mushroom, I'm actually using different hues of my favorite color, magenta. Once the brown completely dries, I go back with a flesh tone and sort of dry brush it in. I do this slowly, layer by layer, until the coverage is where I want it to be. You know it's time for baking soda and crazy glue. This time we'll be using it to attach the smaller fungi to the stem of the big mushroom. I typically glue about 3 of them per mushroom. And when they're done, I usually end up painting them the same color as the mushroom they're attached to. Using the same technique as earlier, hot glue your mushroom to your base. For extra security, add a little bit of crazy glue and baking soda. Next, bend the tips of the paper fasteners so that you can glue them to the base. Crazy glue and baking soda is probably your best bet here, just to save some time. I glued 3 mushrooms for this build. To apply the grass texture, lay down some PVA glue on the areas you want the grass. Spread the PVA glue so it doesn't pull. Then I add my grass that I made from sawdust. After that, I spray it with a 1-to-1 ratio mixture of water and PVA glue. Then you just wait for it to dry and add a few darker tones of green and dry brush a bit of yellow onto the grass and you're done. But wait, there's more. What kind of DM would I be if I made everything look the same? Let's spice things up and try to change it up a bit. I'll show you a few different shapes you can make to make your mushroom look different. Some of these are just better for players for interaction, like this one the player can get on top of. And some of them just look good because they look different, even if it's just by the color. This next item might be hard to get your hands on. You will either need to know somebody in the restaurant business or know someone that likes Patron tequila. Side note, I don't drink and I don't endorse drinking. But if you can get your hands on some of these, I guarantee you they'll look amazing. Now, I want to take the time to thank everybody that participated in the contest. We have a winner and it will all be handled through Twitter. Just a quick shout outs to the winner, Matthew Sterner. Soon enough he'll be getting his own appreciation slimes. I just wanted to say that it did help a lot. I was surprised on how fast we hit 100 subs after the announcement. And it's all because of you. Again, thank you so much. I am planning on doing more giveaways and plan on extending the prize to things I have built in the channel. But for now, please sub if you haven't and tell someone if you think they might enjoy this content. Thank you so much for your support. I also want to give a huge thanks to my girlfriend for pushing me to do this on YouTube. If it wasn't for her, I would have probably never stepped out of my comfort zone and opened the channel up. Her name is Genesis Garcia, and she has also been helping me manage things here behind the scenes. She's been keeping me on track and focused. I would probably still be crafting in my badly lit craft room if it wasn't for her. And lastly, I want to thank my Patreons for believing in me. I have plans and goals for the channel, and they make me feel that much closer to them. Thank you so much again for everything. Now let's get back to the crafting. We're almost done here, but one last tip before we end it. Right before I finished the project, I used the Citadel Shade Rakeland Flesh Shade. I used it as a final touch on the ground, and I gotta say the results were phenomenal. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Frankie D Crafter. I hope you enjoyed the content, and let me know which is your favorite shape or color for the mushrooms in the comment section below. If you enjoyed the episode, don't forget to like, and if you haven't subscribed, well you should. We're just getting started and it's just getting better from here. If you are looking for other ways to support the channel, head over to my Patreon page. With your help, we can take this channel to the next level. Check out some of the options there. Thank you so much again, and I'll catch you on the flippity side.